She thought the past was buried, her mother's photo hidden deep in an old family album, the only trace of a woman who vanished without a word. But when she walked into the billionaire's mansion for a charity gala, her breath caught in her throat. Hanging above the grand staircase was that same photo, framed in gold, glowing under crystal light. How could her mother's face be staring back at her from a stranger's wall? And what secret could bind a missing black woman to one of the most powerful men in America? Amara had never felt out of place in her world, until the night her past came back to find her. At 26, she'd built a quiet life defined by resilience. Working long shifts as an event coordinator in downtown Atlanta, she was known for her calm under pressure, her sharp eye for detail, and the warmth that made even the most demanding clients soften. Every paycheck was stretched thin: rent, her brother's college fund, and the small box under her bed filled with her mother's old photos. Her mother, Leela, had vanished when Amara was just 8. No police report ever brought answers. No obituary, no body, just a mystery that faded with time. Some said she ran away. Others whispered darker things. Her grandmother always told her, "Let sleeping ghosts lie." But Amara couldn't. Each time she traced her mother's smile in a photograph, she felt the ache of something unfinished, something waiting. Still, she had learned how to survive in a world that rarely saw her. Black, ambitious, unapologetically driven. She made herself indispensable, invisible when she had to be, bold when she couldn't afford silence. Her job was to make chaos look effortless, every table set, every light perfect, every guest impressed. So when the invitation arrived, a private charity gala for the Whitmores, one of the city's wealthiest families, it felt like a door opening. The kind that only opened once. Prestige, opportunity, a name that could change her career. She didn't hesitate. The mansion rose like something out of a dream or a warning. A long driveway curved through manicured gardens, roses glowing under soft lights. The air smelled like money, old and inherited. Staff hurried past in quiet efficiency. Amara, clipboard in hand, breathed in the moment, part purpose. She wasn't here to be impressed. She was here to deliver perfection. Yet as she moved through the grand ballroom, a strange tension hummed in the air. Portraits of pale, stern faces lined the walls, men in uniforms, women in pearls, all watching. Legacy, captured in oil and gold leaf. But beneath the beauty, something felt off. The kind of off you can't name, only feel. Her heels clicked softly on the marble as she made her final walkthrough. The floral arrangements were flawless. The champagne tower glittered under chandeliers. Still, her gaze drifted, drawn upward, toward the massive staircase. There, hanging alone above it, was a painting unlike the others. A woman dressed simply in white. No jewels, no grandeur, just a quiet, haunting grace. The brushstrokes were delicate, reverent almost. Amara froze. Something about the woman's posture, the curve of her lips, the softness in her eyes, struck a chord deep in Amara's chest. For a heartbeat, she forgot where she was. The noise of the staff faded. Time seemed to hold its breath. Then she blinked, shook her head, and forced herself back to work. The gala would start soon. No time for distractions. Outside, engines purred and laughter echoed as luxury cars pulled up. The air shimmered with perfume, camera flashes, and privilege. Amara adjusted her blazer, smoothing invisible wrinkles, anchoring herself in professionalism. She told herself it was just nerves, just another event. But even as she moved through the room, giving orders and checking details, she couldn't shake the image of that woman in white. Because somewhere deep down, in the quiet space between logic and memory, a whisper stirred, telling her that this night, this house, would change everything. By the time the gala reached its peak, Amara had perfected her mask. A polite smile, steady posture, precision in every move. No one would have guessed her pulse was still racing from that painting upstairs, the woman in white whose face looked too much like her mother. The Whitmore mansion glowed beneath golden light. Atlanta's elite drifted from table to table, their laughter clinking through crystal glasses. Amara moved among them, invisible, indispensable, adjusting centerpieces, cueing servers, smoothing chaos before it began. But the unease never faded. Near the champagne tower, 2 women whispered, their words sharp as glass. "She's not staff, is she?" one asked. "Probably," the other replied, her tone airy, careless. They brought in some diversity hires. Looks good for PR. Their laughter followed, polished, casual, cruel. Amara's throat tightened, but she didn't flinch. She'd learned long ago that in rooms like this, anger had consequences. Still, the words clung to her skin like dust she couldn't shake. As she passed the grand staircase, her eyes lifted to the portrait again. The woman in white stared back, familiar, too familiar. The almond eyes, the quiet warmth, the smile she'd traced so many times in faded photographs. Her chest tightened. Could it really be her mother? Her reflection stared up from the polished floor, pale beneath the chandelier light. Her composure wavered, and that's when a voice cut through the air. "Miss, guests aren't allowed upstairs." A guard, tall, white, broad-shouldered. His tone carried no courtesy, only suspicion. "I work here," Amara said softly, holding her ground. His eyes scanned her, slow and dismissive. "You sure about that?" She raised her badge. He studied it too long before stepping aside. "Just doing my job," he muttered. Amara nodded, but her hands trembled. She'd faced prejudice before, the looks, the assumptions, but this felt different. Heavier, like the house itself was testing her. Later, when the music softened and the guests began to fade into champagne haze, she slipped away toward the back hallway. A narrow door stood ajar. Behind it, a staircase leading down. The air changed as she descended, cooler, denser, carrying the scent of dust and old secrets. At the bottom, a small room stretched out, lined with boxes and framed photographs. She wiped grime from one. Her breath caught. The same woman, her mother, smiling beside a man she didn't recognize. A nameplate below read, "Leela Whitmore, 1987, Volunteer Coordinator." Leela Whitmore. Her mother's name was Leela Jones. Before she could make sense of it, footsteps echoed behind her, slow, deliberate. A man in a tailored suit appeared in the doorway. His presence filled the room like a shadow. "You shouldn't be here," he said, calm but cold. I was just checking." His gaze flicked to the photo in her hands. For a moment, something flashed across his face, recognition or guilt, then vanished. "Put that down," he said, firmer now. "This area is restricted." Amara placed the frame back, her heart pounding. She muttered an apology and backed toward the stairs. But her mind was already unraveling. Why was her mother's picture in this house? Why under another name? And why had Edward Whitmore, the man she now recognized, looked at her like he'd seen a ghost? Back upstairs, the party glittered on laughter, music, champagne, as if the world hadn't shifted. But for Amara, everything had. Her mother hadn't vanished. She'd been erased. And this house of wealth and whispers was hiding why. Amara looked up at the portrait once more. The woman's eyes gleamed in the candlelight, soft, knowing, almost alive. She swallowed hard, whispering, "Mom, what did they do to you?" Somewhere behind her, a door clicked shut, locked. The gala was nearly over when everything began to unravel. Laughter spilled through the ballroom, louder now, looser, blurred by champagne. But Amara barely heard it. Her mind was still in that cold basement, staring at her mother's face frozen behind glass. She moved through the room like someone caught between two worlds, the one she'd built and the one that had been hidden from her all along. Her mother had worked here, lived here, maybe even died here, and Edward Whitmore knew why. She'd seen it in his eyes downstairs, that flicker of recognition, the shadow of fear. Across the room, she spotted him. Surrounded by donors, his smile flawless, his laughter perfectly timed. A billionaire hosting a charity gala for community empowerment, raising money for people his world would never touch. The anger rose slowly, hot beneath her calm exterior. She hadn't planned to confront him, not here, but when their eyes met across the crowd for a single electric heartbeat, something inside her broke. She walked toward him. The music faltered, conversations thinned, Edward's smile stiffened as she approached. "Mr. Whitmore," she said evenly, "we need to talk." He blinked, the mask slipping. "About what?" "My mother." The words cut the air cleanly. For the first time, color drained from his face. Around them, guests sensed the shift, pretending not to watch while watching everything. "You're mistaken," he said, forcing calm. "You're exhausted. These events can be overwhelming." "Her name was Leela Jones," Amara pressed. "But in your house, her name was Leela Whitmore. Why?" The air thickened. Edward's practiced smile faltered. He glanced at the cameras, the guests, then back at her. "Miss, this isn't the time." "It's exactly the time," she said, louder now. Her hands trembled, but her voice was steady. "You've got her portrait hanging above your staircase. You hid her name, you knew her. What did you do to her?" Gasps whispered through the crowd. A few phones lifted discreetly. Edward's wife touched his arm, whispering something urgent, but Amara didn't see them anymore. She only saw him. He leaned in, voice low, dangerous. "You don't know what you're getting yourself into." The words landed like a threat wrapped in silk. Amara's pulse hammered. "You're right," she said quietly, "but maybe it's time the world does." She turned, ready to walk away, to blow the truth open, when the lights flickered. Then darkness. A chorus of gasps, footsteps, shouts, the sharp crash of glass, for a moment chaos, then the lights returned. Edward Whitmore was gone. And so was the portrait. The grand staircase stood bare, the wall above it empty, only faint outlines of where the frame had been. Amara froze. Someone had removed it in those few seconds of blackout. Security moved fast, ushering guests out, muttering about technical malfunctions. But Amara knew better. This wasn't coincidence. This was control. When the last guests disappeared, silence fell like dust. Amara stood in the dim ballroom, her reflection ghosted in the glass doors, small, trembling, but unbroken. Somewhere in this house lay the truth about her mother, and now they knew she was looking for it. As the lights dimmed, she noticed something near the staircase, a scatter of gold flakes along the marble floor. She knelt, brushing one between her fingers. Beneath the gold leaf paint was a layer of black, uneven and cracked. She leaned closer. Beneath it, faint letters carved into the wood backing, just one word. Property. Her breath caught. It wasn't a name, it was a label. The realization hit like ice. Her mother hadn't been a guest here, she'd been owned. Rage blurred her vision. The Whitmores' empire, their legacy, was built not on generosity, but on stolen lives. On women like her mother, erased and renamed. Behind her, footsteps echoed, slow, deliberate, closing in. Amara turned, her shadow stretching up the staircase. A low, familiar voice broke the silence. "You should have left the past buried." Amara didn't leave the mansion that night with answers. She left with questions, burning, relentless, echoing in the quiet of her apartment. The photographs she had glimpsed, the words carved beneath the gilded frame, the suffocating sense of control, they painted a truth she hadn't been prepared for. Her mother's life hadn't been lost. It had been claimed, rewritten, hidden behind wealth and power, and the people responsible had smiled in public while erasing her existence in private. In the weeks that followed, obsession took hold. Every document she could access, every article about the Whitmore legacy, every whispered rumor about missing women in Atlanta, she traced them like threads in a tapestry she had been too young to see before. Each discovery stabbed like ice, patterns of exploitation, erasure, and denial stretching across decades. Wealth had shielded cruelty. Status had hidden crime. Race had made her mother disposable. But grief sparked purpose. She began sharing her story cautiously online, with journalists, with anyone who would listen. Her words were simple, unadorned, a daughter demanding recognition for the mother she had loved and lost. People responded. Others came forward with small truths silenced for generations. The ripple became a wave. Amara realized her fight wasn't just about her mother. It was about exposing a system where history was rewritten by the powerful and ignored for the rest. She couldn't undo the past, but she could shine a light on it. Sometimes, she thought, that was the closest thing to justice one person could achieve. The mansion still haunted her dreams, echoing footsteps, the cold shadow of that voice. You should have left the past buried. But fear no longer held her. Resolve had replaced it. She carried her mother's memory like a torch, refusing to let it dim in silence. Her journey reshaped her understanding of the world. How racism and wealth often entwine, how identities are stolen. How women like her mother were erased to protect the powerful. The truth weighed on her, but it demanded action. And she remembered her mother's lessons, fragments buried in lullabies and bedtime stories. Resilience, dignity, the quiet power of standing tall even when unseen. Amara held them close, channeling them into a mission larger than herself. Her story didn't end with comfort or closure. It ended with awakening for herself and for anyone willing to listen. Some truths cannot be erased, no matter how carefully hidden. They surface, carried by those brave enough to speak. Now, when she looks at her mother's photograph on her desk, she doesn't see only loss. She sees survival, courage, a call to action. A life stolen, yes, but also a life remembered, honored, impossible to forget. Her story, her mother's story, and countless others raise a question we cannot ignore. How many lives are quietly erased today, hidden behind wealth, status, or indifference? How many voices are still waiting for someone to speak for them? And in that silence, Amara found her answer. She would speak. She would fight. She would make sure the world never forgot her mother's name. Because remembering is resistance. Justice begins when the forgotten are seen.